In life, sometimes you get pushed to the edge, and in that edge, you end up unleashing who you really are, taking yourself to the next level, going above and beyond anything you've ever dreamed of, and evolving to a state that you couldn't believe if you look back 10, 20 years ago. So today, I'm going to be doing that for you when we talk about Naughty Dogs and how they have unleashed themselves for this next project. We're going to be talking about Intergalactic, and there's plenty of things to discuss with this game. But before we get started on that, I wanted to take a moment to give you guys a deep dive into how I believe Naughty Dogs will be unleashed, not only with this game, but overall, it would take it to the next level. Super exciting time. Here we go. Yes, we're going to take you backwards to where it all started, right? In the 80s, the first thing that Naughty Dog has done was Math Jam. Then, right after, they did Sky Craze, which was another game that at its time, you know what you see. Then you had Dream Zone. And I'm going to be bringing these games up casually, but the purpose of it is they had a certain style and flair to their work and a familiarity that you might appreciate from them from the way they made these games. And to be honest with you, talk about point and click adventures, at that time were very special. And then you can move along into the 90s where they really took it to that next level as well, which we'll get into when it comes to bigger and better things as they partnered up with different publishers to give you Rings of Power and things like that that came out for the Sega Genesis at the time. And the reason I want to bring these things up is to help you understand that they really evolved throughout these years early on, going from something simple, small, and something you might not have never heard of. And when you think of Naughty Dog, you probably think of Uncharted or The Last of Us or maybe Crash Bandicoot. And that is perfectly fine, no judgment there. But we're going to take you back on that ride, jumping around to games like this where Rings of Power was a new isometric RPG style of game that they basically put to the front hold to do something special and unique and kind of help themselves evolve. And then from there, they started getting into other type of genres as well. In the fighting genre, aka Way of the Warrior. See here, kind of like the Mortal Kombat. And that was a 3DO type of setup, which I actually thought was funny. Then, of course, you have the one and the only, and I think this is where most people will start off with. They'll probably give them this type of recognition for the next game, Crash Bandicoot, because it was so commercialized and popularized and very special for its time. Okay, and this is the mid 90s, and so you're getting a little more 3D gameplay, very cool stuff. And they kind of got stuck, and this is what I wanted to start talking about. They got stuck in their popularity, and a lot of studios fall into this trap where you make a decent game or maybe a great one, and the publishers are like, hey, make another one, and we can kind of live off the success of the first one. And that's where the second one came in. And this became a huge series, a well known Crash Bandicoot. I mean, people that have gamed in the 90s all know Crash Bandicoot. So they released three games back to back, all Crash Bandicoot, all the way up until 1999 when they started to change again. But this is just an example of what they were doing. And they ended up going even deeper with a Crash Team Racing, which was in 99, which was again still in the same field and in the same world. And so while you're creative and you can do some special things, sometimes working for publishers, you have to feed the beast and get your money's worth, because they won't survive as a studio if they don't. Don't get me twisted, these games were fun if you look at them now and you say, wow, that was great for their times. And this racing one was very popular because, Mario Kart and things like that. It made this version of it, which again, like I said, that was another Crash Bandicoot, but a different type of version. And this can tell you that they just needed a change and they had to shake it up. And this was the start where they went into other fields similar to Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter. And that was in 2001. And Jak and Daxter, again, another one of those very popular games, known for what they did here. Some very special designs, some very cool things. They helped bring this commercialized style of game, the 3D platformer, into another zone. Then they had to make part 2. And guess what? See how the trend follows. They end up making part 3 and Daxter X, which is a combat racing game. So they pretty much follow the same formula that they did for Crash Bandicoot, making a couple of sequels and doing a racing game to follow the times of Mario Kart and things of that nature. And so the reason why this is important to kind of understand that most studios do this, when you think of, for example, the legendary Guerrilla Games, they also followed. Killzone was their biggest franchise, and it got a little stale for them sales wise, and they moved in and gave us Horizon Zero Dawn, which to me is one of the greatest games. I love that. And of course, Forbidden West right after a sequel. But it's an example that people will stay within their genres and in their series and not stray away in order to keep the success going. And this is great for some fans who love the series, but it also hurts because then all of a sudden the conversation is they just keep making what they've already made. As you can see right here, this is another example of Jak's, another race game. They did one for Crash Bandicoot, now they did one for Jak. And that's an example of following the formula of success instead of going out of the norm and doing something creative. And that's where things, I wouldn't say hurt, but they don't always help. Okay. And then things change. And this is where, okay, you're getting stale. We know your little systems. Give us something special. And Uncharted was born 2007 for the PlayStation 3. Drake's Fortune was probably one of the most phenomenal games of its era. Very exciting, very interesting. We do know a lot of action adventure games are very fun and interesting. This game had climbing, it had some puzzles, it had a lot of shooting action, things like that. Great narrative, very fun experience. And this was their evolution from these typical platformer style games. And then of course, part 2, the success, they had to come back and kill this. And this is one of my favorite series. Like, it's special in every way. They really knew how to do the hand-to-hand combat, give you a very cool gripping narrative, good pacing in these things, and the cinematics, of course, as you see here a little bit, just nice stuff to introduce players to something special. And they kept evolving in their gameplay, in their visuals, in their presentations, and so much fun that I had in these games. You can do some stealth, you can do some action, and you can get into these parkour climbing mechanics, things like that that really helped. But again, they're trapped. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're trapped within the franchises that they make. And that is a problem. So they broke free and gave us The Last of Us. Now, this right here was a game changer. I felt like the narrative is probably one of the most classic stories you could ever get in video game history and in even movies. Like, if you had this play out, we did see the TV show, phenomenal, but this is so incredible, and I just can't not say enough about this game. But this would have never existed if we stuck with the standard stuff. You know, if we would have stuck with Crash Bandicoot, their first game, they would have been stuck not making The Last of Us or Uncharted. So it's just an example of, yes, allowing them to cook and be creative and do something new and something different. And of course, they gave us this DLC slash standalone project right after. And this is where they started to really have fans want them back in the Uncharted world. And this was the thief's end, as they say, because they knew they had something cooking with The Last of Us and they were going to come back with something different. They don't want to be standard. And I will be honest, I felt like part 4, happy go lucky type of experience in this game kind of tells you everything is too Hollywood and not enough narrative. And I love the Uncharted series, but we needed some shakeup. And even though part 4 ended amazing, which I don't want to spoil, it definitely left me feeling like they're just playing it safe here. Now you can have a part 5, part 6, part 7, and we're just going to have 50,000 Uncharteds. And maybe I was wrong. They came out with this DLC here, and then the world changed. And whether you agree or disagree with my next statement, this is probably going to be some of the most important things in this post about what I feel personally, and not necessarily something y'all have to agree with. The Last of Us 2, to me, it is a masterpiece. Whether you agree or disagree what happens to Joel or what happens in the game, I felt so overwhelmed by this game's emotionally, amazing gameplay, game mechanics, and just overall experience for part 2 is you can't beat this in a lot of ways. And that's something I absolutely love. But as we know, we expected, like most of us, expected a brand new game. And look at this, we get the announcement of their brand new game. And no, just a heads up, it is not Uncharted 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, and it's not The Last of Us 3, 4, 5. It is a game in the sci-fi realm, a brand new experience. And before we get started, there's a lot of thickness in this trailer. The deep quote in the beginning, staring out into space and the endless possibilities of what could be. They have a chance to do anything and everything. And my main point about Uncharted and The Last of Us, even Crash Bandicoot, is they're very limited in what they could have done there compared to this game, where I believe the creativity is through the roof. They're capable of doing anything and no one can say no to them because they're in space, in some alternate universe possibly. We see some mechs, we see a Porsche spaceship, all types of amazingness that I do believe the creativity will be unleashed, not only with the story, but the environments, the enemies, and overall experience for the players. A lot of wows and woes and no-nos are coming. And this is why I believe Naughty Dog will end up being unleashed. And so that's my take on what's to expect. And I just want to add a little personal note here. To me, this was their teaser. Instead of giving you a 10-second title of a game like most developers do early on in their cycle, they'll just give you the title of the game. Part 3, Part 2, this is the name of the game. Intergalactic. Instead, they said, we're going to give you a teaser to the universe. We're going to give you the main character. We're going to introduce you to some of the world and have a lot of clues and just open the door for your brain to process what is happening. Is this young girl hunting this man, or is she trying to help him, trying to find him for herself? What is her goals? And her willingness to go to a forbidden planet makes it even more interesting. Who is she really with her tattoos? Looks like in the military or maybe prison or both. There's a little bit of clues there. And hunting somebody down, asking for the bounty to get claimed, and now she's ready to go, which is outstanding. So interesting, and I cannot wait to see how they cook this up and change the game for what we have. And what's very cool about this here, again, you see the Porsche, you see the Adidas, you see some branding, Sony, all of this cool stuff in the trailer that lets you relate to them, because it's setting the ground for us to be connected. Even with the music, super interesting. It's Sin in the song, and there's so much to get into, but just wanted to share some perspective and some thoughts on what I'm feeling and how I know for a fact Naughty Dog said, I want to be unleashed. And they will have no limits, just like this amazing ship, to what they can do. And so I'm super excited, passing Bandicoot, Uncharted, and The Last of Us, and bringing us Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. Enjoy, guys. See you on the next one.